As we mark the 77th anniversary of the Nakba and 587 days of genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza, we remember that what began in 1948, that violent rupture, laid the foundations for the present. 77 years ago, over 750,000 Palestinians were forcibly displaced. Today, many of their descendants are being buried in mass graves in Gaza. The impunity that Israel has enjoyed since 1948, the failure of the promise of the international system to protect Palestinian life, is on full display today as Palestinians are killed daily in scores. Massacres are no longer meriting headlines. I'm here to speak to you about the landscape of the United States. Being rooted in the United States, our organization is focused on holding US-based actors accountable. And so I'll focus my remarks on those efforts. Because while this genocide is being carried out by Israel, it has been funded, armed, and shielded by the United States at every step of the way. At this stage, the US has crossed the line well from complicity to full participant in Israel's project of erasing the Palestinian people. And I'll be frank, as a Palestinian human rights attorney, I have never engaged with the United Nations headquarters in New York. Our history has taught me that over and over again, the promises of international law and rules-based world order would not be fulfilled under the current system. I have instead focused on protecting advocates out of the conviction that it is political change that is required. But in these dire times, as Palestinians in Gaza are being starved and massacred, I came here because we must appeal to everything and everyone. At the Center for Constitutional Rights, we brought one of the few legal challenges inside the United States to stop this genocide. And it was early on, because by October 8th, 2023, it became abundantly clear that we would be witnessing something unlike anything we have seen. Israeli officials made it clear that they intended to allow no food, no water, no electricity into Gaza. They called Palestinians human animals that they vowed to destroy. They announced their genocidal intentions, and we moved with urgency. As early as October 18, 2023, we published a briefing paper not only detailing the ways in which Israel's actions and statements over those first 10 days indicated an unfolding genocide, but given that we were in the US, we named US complicity in that unfolding genocide. We shared the analysis with the Biden administration. We also came right here to the United Nations and shared the briefing paper with US representatives and others. In sounding the alarm bell, we sought to put the Biden administration on notice. We hoped to trigger the duty to prevent a genocide. We hoped to stop the flow of US assistance to Israel's assault, without which it could not proceed. When that support went uninterrupted and even accelerated, we turned to the courts. So on behalf of Palestinian human rights organizations and individual Palestinian plaintiffs who were in or from Gaza, we filed a lawsuit in US federal court against then President Biden, Secretary of State Blinken, and Secretary of Defense Austin for their failure to prevent and complicity in Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza. And we sought fast judicial relief, known as a preliminary injunction. In a US courtroom in January 2024, our clients offered a remarkable and devastating series of testimonies. They told of the deaths of scores of their relatives, of their communities and the places of their memories wiped out over the course of what was by then still 3 months of genocide. It was a scale of human suffering that shocked all who listened, including the judge. Again and again, our clients' testimonies returned to 1948. Every single one of them, when telling their story with the urgency it demanded, invoked the Nakba. Because there is no other way to explain how we got here. There is no other way to explain how their families ended up in Gaza, even though they were originally from Jaffa. There was no other way to explain to the judge what Palestinians hear when Israeli officials demand Nakba now. There's no way to fully convey the impact of being ordered to leave your home. The Nakba is not a distant origin point. It is the live wound that explains this moment. This is the continuity that must be understood and interrupted. Unfortunately, US courts have not offered any modicum of accountability and have done nothing to interrupt it. In that case, although the judge found that the plaintiff's testimonies were, quote, uncontroverted, and although he agreed that there was plausibly a genocide unfolding, the judge found that he did not have jurisdiction to order the relief that we needed. He held that this was a political question and not something that the courts could meddle with. This position was affirmed by the Court of Appeals in a shameful abdication of judicial responsibility. And so, although we continue to seek ways to find accountability in US courts, we also know that they will not deliver freedom. They will not break the cycle. Ultimately, unless the political landscape shifts, and until states understand that the evisceration of norms are against their own interests, we will not see any material change in unconditional support to the Israeli military. And here in the US, there is widespread and growing opposition to Israeli policies and a strong desire to end military support for Israel. And it is precisely because that shifting political tide that we have seen such aggressive repression. This repression, too, is a form of complicity. Because genocide doesn't only rely on bombs and UN vetoes. It relies on the silencing of those who try to stop it. In the United States, the robust, widespread movement to stop a genocide is being met with criminalization, harassment, arrests, and deportation attempts. Students are subject to disciplinary proceeding, doxing by private organizations, and billions of dollars are being withheld from universities to pressure them to further repress advocacy for Palestinian rights. We are seeing the threat of sanctions against the International Criminal Court. Students who called for their institutions to divest from the Israeli military, from weapons manufacturers, who organized encampments to shift their universities' policies have been whisked away in the middle of the night, away from their communities and placed in prisons, while Israeli war criminals receive warm welcomes at some of those same campuses. As lawyers, instead of spending our resources doing everything we can to hold accountable war criminals and to end corporate and state complicity in Israel's genocide, we are called to defend the advocates, the institutions, and the students that are facing this assault. So we represent Mahmoud Khalil, a US green card holder of Palestinian origin, a refugee from Syria, and former student at Columbia who was active in protesting Israel's genocide on campus and calling for divestment. We also represent Badar Khan Suri, an Indian national and a fellow at Georgetown University who is here on a visa. Both were arrested for their support for Palestinian life, for Palestinian rights. There are others like them across the country. You might have heard of Rumaisa Ozturk, of Mohsen Mahdawi, and many others, to name, so those are only just a few. And although I'm thrilled to stand here and announce that Dr. Khan Suri was just ordered released 2 days ago by a judge, Mahmoud has marked his 2 months in detention. He missed being present for the birth of his newborn son, Dean. Every single day that he spends in detention chills others from engaging in public protest. These detentions are part of a broader policy to silence and punish those who dare to speak out against Israel's genocide in Gaza. Across US cities and campuses, we are witnessing a crackdown on those resisting complicity at a scale never seen before. Students dragged away by immigration officers or arrested by police, professors fired, workers blacklisted, vicious doxing, and smear campaigns. All of this, too, is a form of complicity. We will do what we can to fight this repression in U.S. courts, and we will continue to seek creative ways to seek accountability for U.S. officials, corporations, and other actors for their complicity in or participation in genocide. Recently, a group of Palestinians, including one of the plaintiffs in our case suing Biden and other officials, have turned to regional mechanisms like the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. But ultimately, we need states to act, and the demands have been consistent and clear. And I would like to echo the demands that Saleh made and add to them. We need an immediate and complete arms embargo. We need to support efforts for accountability in international and regional mechanisms and cooperation with its investigations, of course, free of political interference. We need to support and protect those who protest and expose these crimes, like Mahmoud Khalil, and like the many Palestinian human rights organizations risking everything to document crimes and work towards accountability. And we need states, especially global South states, Arab states, and those with a legacy of anti-colonial struggle, to break ranks with U.S. and Western complicity. The United States government has made it clear that it would take a sledgehammer to international institutions that it has once purported to value in service of a genocidal project. The courts in the United States might offer some hope as we fend off repression, but it is only political pressure that will ultimately end U.S. support for Israel. So on this Nakba Day, I remember my own family's displacement and their survival. I think about how formative, how foundational that moment was for my family. I hold my teta, or my grandmother's, stories of losing everything, of betrayal by the world, by those tasked with or claiming to protect her. The Nakba has left each one of us with no choice but to commit ourselves to resist a systemic effort to erase us. Indeed, the Nakba was not a one-time event. It is a system. It is a system that seeks to eliminate us through death and through displacement, but also partition, fragmentation, despair, and domination. And just as systems are built, they can be dismantled. But systems do not end on their own. They are ended by people and by states, by exactly the people in this room. One of our clients in Gaza, Ahmed Abu Rtema, who is the founder of the Great Return March, recently wrote a moving letter to Mahmoud Khalil, our client who is here in immigration detention. His letter reminds us of how important it is to do whatever we can to interrupt this genocide wherever we are. He wrote, "Your actions lit a torch of hope in our hearts, piercing the darkness of global complicity and apathy." Ahmed and Mahmoud are doing as individuals maybe more than any member state is. Their correspondence is a reminder that Palestinians are, regardless of where on the land we find ourselves, regardless of our fragmentation, still one people. And we continue to be united in our struggle to overcome the Nakba's geography of partition and domination. Let us mark the 77th anniversary of the Nakba by choosing to dismantle its legacy and to pierce the darkness. Thank you.